So let me welcome our special guest, Glenn Morris, who has over 35 years experience both professionally in the design and implementation of innovative energy solutions, as well as experience in living off-grid for about that same amount of time and living what he preaches. So please welcome our special guest, Glenn Morris, to present today's webinar.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, well, I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri country. I live on Mount Tulibawang in the Yarra Valley near Melbourne. It's a cold place up here, but I'm in a large, warm studio coming to you from where I mostly work, which is a lot to do with solar. So let's dive into it. I've got a short presentation to kind of spur your thinking, and then we'll dive into Q&A. I'm not sure what people's background is, but I'm keeping it pretty low tech level. So let's talk a bit about balcony solar as it's often referred to. Plug-in solar, balcony solar. You'll see acronyms like PIPV, meaning plug in little I, PV. All those things mean the same thing. I'm actually the Smart Energy Council's representative on Standards Australia for renewable energy, so for batteries, inverters, solar panels, etc. I've been on their rep for 15 years now. So yeah, let's get into balcony solar. So what is it? What is the problem? The problem is the equity gap. According to Rewiring Australia, approximately 50% of owner-occupied homes in Australia have solar. It's the highest per capita in the world. It's by a long shot. But renters, probably only 11% or less. It's a bit hard to say exactly, but a lot less. And that's partly because they haven't been able to access any of the incentives that have made solar so popular in Australia. So it's a really big issue, this equity gap. And I've been having discussions with the Energy Minister's office, and they're very concerned about this. I suppose it's a political issue for them that 30% of Australians who rent are also voters. So they've got to think about them as well. But there are some other schemes. I put them in small print down the bottom there. For instance, from the 1st of July this year, it's just been launched as the solar share offer. So 3 hours of free power in the middle of the day, but it's not coming till Victoria till a little bit later if you're in Victoria, but it's already available in New South Wales, South Australia and southeastern Queensland. So if you can schedule power to be consumed between 11 and 2, it's free if you choose that offer from your retailer. Of course, there's already been a bit of a backlash against that because you're seeing that some of those offers from retailers mean a higher fixed charge. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. It's hard to get ahead of this stuff. So what does balcony solar look like? Well, literally, it's usually 1 to 2 solar panels. This one looks like a bit of overachiever. Looks like they've got 4 of them, but just attached to the exterior of your building. You don't have to have a balcony. It could be, in the grass out the side of your laundry or whatever, but they do need to be attached in a way that they're safe. So there are mounting systems for them so they can't blow away. In Germany, and I've got some stats from, it's a bit out of date, but 2024, 220,000 systems. I think it's closer to 400,000 now. It's a hugely popular offer in opportunity in Germany, and it only costs a few €100. Solar panels are incredibly cheap. So 1 or 2 panels, something called a microinverter, which is just like a little box about 150 mils across that the panels plug into, and then a cord that plugs into a standard power point, ideally on the outside of your house, rather than have to run it through a window. So that's what balcony solar looks like. Oops, I've jumped a slide. Let's go back one. The new wave is plug-in batteries. In fact, I've got one right behind me, right here. So this is a plug-in battery. So it's solar and battery. It's got on the side here, it's got connections for up to 4 solar panels. So you can actually have both. You can have free solar and you can store it so you can use it at nighttime when you have something like this. So yeah, the new wave is plug-in batteries. There are some, based on the German rules, limitations on how much power you can inject back into your home from your, whether it's a plug-in solar or plug-in battery, is only 800 watts. And that's to do with ensuring the safety of the circuits that you're plugging into, that you can't overload them. Also, the panels must be extra low voltage. So that means they're basically below sort of below about 60 volts, you can't get a fatal electric shock. You probably can't even get a shock off them if you try, because they're all screened plugs anyway. So short of putting them in your mouth, I don't think you could ever do anything dangerous. So solar panels have to be extra low voltage to be eligible for this plug-in solar in Germany and other countries in Europe. Also, because it plugs in, and maybe I will actually show you this. I've got one here. So this is, of course, a German plug, and I've got a little adapter, so I can plug it into an Australian plug. All right. If I plug this into my wall socket, the power from this battery and any solar panels connected to it can flow the wrong way, i.e. back into your home. It's not that wrong, but but the concern is when I unplug it, are these pins still live? Can I go and get a shock off it? Well, no, because the requirement is that within milliseconds of disconnecting from the wall, there is no voltage. So you cannot physically touch it fast enough. You can try, you could try, but you can't. So these are perfectly safe to unplug, even though there's power flowing through them when you unplug them. Now, some of these systems, like the one that I've just tapped on, actually have backup as well. So even though you might just be thinking about self-using your solar and or your battery, but say the grid fails, these can also provide a small amount of backup. So this one particularly, 1.2 kilowatt hours per battery module. You can actually scale these. So each of these, that's one battery, that's another. You can have, I think, up to 9.6 kilowatt hours, which is probably about half the daily consumption of a home. So you can actually build these into quite big backup systems, and they have their own dedicated socket outlet on the side around here, which you plug into your essential appliance. So when the grid fails, you've got an essential appliance socket on the side of the unit. So that's pretty cool. The currently, I sound very excited about plug-in solar, but currently is not permitted to connect to the grid using plug-in solar. So I've just shown you it's very easy to do, but it's not permitted because of our rules. We've got rules around inverter systems that connect to the grid, numbers like 4777 Part 1 and for PV 5033. And those basically mean they have to be installed by a licensed electrician, have to get approval from your utility, they have to be commissioned in states like South Australia and Victoria, and soon New South Wales and Queensland. You'll also have to get what's known as a backstop capability, which means that it remotely can be turned off. That all doesn't make sense for a teeny weeny little solar power system, which is what balcony is compared to the massive systems on homes. So it's already happening. I mean, I know of someone in Sydney who's got 4 of these units plugged into 4 outlets on their home. So far, they haven't died and the house hasn't burnt down. I'm not advocating it, but I'm just saying people are doing it already. And the other thing is they're really only one click away from AliExpress. You can buy them now online. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that they're very, very available. And that's a bit of a concern, which is a black market starting to set what the rules are. So there are some legal pathways for using solar, and I'll talk about those, but not plug-in. The other concern is, how does plug-in solar affect the grid? Well, you can look at it in 2 ways. A plug-in solar system actually only puts out maximum of 800 watts. And if you put that into context, when you go to make a cup of tea after this session and turn your kettle on, it's going to be drawing 2,400 watts or maybe a bit less. So many times more than your little plug-in battery or solar system can output. So the grid would barely notice that you've actually got one. But there are safety concerns, and on the right-hand side there I've listed them. Anti-islanding. Remember I said when you pull the plug out, there's no live pins. It also has to turn off when the grid fails, which is kind of the same thing as unplugging. Now, all the ones that are designed for markets like Europe already do this, so it's not a problem. But the blinding of RCDs. Now, this is where I get technical. RCDs, most people call them safety switches. They've been mandatory for a long time in Australia and New Zealand. But we were using in Australia a type called Type AC. It's a model type, and they're not tolerant of any DC leakage coming from an inverter. And so they may not trip reliably. So they call that blinding. So if your plug-in solar is working and you have an electrical fault on that circuit, it may not trip. So that's one of the concerns. But since 2023, we've actually banned those type AC switches. So every time there's an upgrade in a home, those AC safety switches get replaced with the more compliant ones. There's a small concern, which I think is irrelevant, that sustained reverse power could overload your socket. 800 watts is very, very little. You know, your blow heater is 2000 watts and it can be on for hours and hours and hours. So I think that's a bit of a furphy, but it is one of those things. But when you've got millions of these units, let's imagine this happens, it does start to bring in a bigger issue, which is orchestration and visibility of those millions of units all plugged in, all working together at the same time. So at the moment with rooftop solar, they have to meet a safety standard. They have to be registered with your electricity supplier. They have to have a safety mechanism, or it's not so much safety, but a grid response mechanism to ramp down when the grid doesn't need them. And in some states, like I already mentioned, you need to have remote disconnect capability. They call that backstop in Victoria. Whereas plug-in devices, they're unregistered. The network doesn't know they're there. They don't necessarily respond to the grid voltage going up and down, and therefore ramp down or ramp up. And they're uncontrollable in scale. We just don't know how many would be out there. So you could say that's the dark view, but I still think it's really overstated. Why can't we just copy Germany? I must admit, my first thoughts were, if it's safe in Germany, why can't we do it here? Well, it turns out we have different electrical systems. So we have one called the Multiple Earth Neutral Earthing System in Australia and New Zealand, or MEN for short. And it's not the same as the European one. So for a start, our safety systems are built differently. As mentioned, RCD protection is different, and therefore that blinding issue. You could even argue that Australia is a much sunnier place, and that means that things have to be a bit more stress tested for environment. And also, fundamentally, our plug-in sockets are different. So you'd have to actually have an appropriate connector, which I can't see that being a problem because we already buy appliances made for the world and they come with Australian plugs on them. So plug-in solar, I guess coming to the end here, it's an answer, but it's not the answer if you're looking at renewables decarbonising the apartment sector. You know, a plug-in solar system might contribute 5 or 10% of the output of what a rooftop solar system can contribute. So it's going to be a small amount, but it is really, for many people, the only self-help option available that doesn't need, you know, your landlord or your strata to sign off on it. There is a pathway I'm proposing to this being adopted in Australia. There's already been a Victorian inquiry into renewables for apartments. I actually presented at that inquiry, and I pushed for balcony power as one of them. And it was a group of politicians from all sides of politics, and they were very supportive. So I don't think it's going to have any issues in terms of political divisions. There is a organization called Race for 2030, and Jenny Gregory, who's heading that up, she's been getting together a bunch of technical and regulatory people, as well as some of the manufacturers, to try and put together you know, or solve the problems, put it that way, rather than just kind of let one department, one regulator say you can't do it. Let's all get in the room and nut it out. So that's a positive move. Rewiring Australia is pushing from more of a political angle, which is the right to plug in. You should have the right to, you know, renters should have the right to plug in their own energy systems and not be refused by landlords. So I think it's somewhat of a plausible pathway, and I'm hoping within the next couple of years we might see that happen in Australia. Like I said at the beginning of my talk, already the Chris Bowen, the Energy Minister's office, is very supportive. They see it as a sensible solution. So they even asked me, why can't we do it now? And I had to explain about Australian standards and regulations. And they go, oh, okay. So what can you do today? What's legal? We can have portable power stations. Now, I've got one behind me, just if you don't know what those are. Yeah. A bit dark, but anyway, it's a big box with a battery in it and some power points. And basically, it means you can take it with you. I've got a few of them. They're really popular with my friends when they go camping. But you can actually have one in your home. If there's a power outage, it runs, you know, this one will run about 2,000 watt appliances. It's got a 2.4 kilowatt hour battery in it, and you can plug solar into it, but it doesn't connect to the grid. So it's a completely standalone system. And those are perfectly legal right now. If you happen to be an apartment dweller, there is some programs, particularly here in Victoria, for solar for apartments to sort of bring down the cost. And there is even technology designed in Victoria for sharing a single solar power system on a building, so that all the tenants can share one single solar system on a roof of an apartment building. Solar share I've mentioned. In terms of don'ts, I just pointed out it is illegal to just go and buy one of these things and plug it in, so it could be unsafe. We don't want to kind of set the campaign back by incidents occurring. I'd really like to say we should advocate for a registration system, not an approval system. A registration system to say that you've got a plug-in solar, but you just fill out something online pretty simply. So I guess summary, the question is whether Australia goes balcony solar. It's not that. That's not really the question. It's whether the regulators write the rules or the black market writes the rules. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. It's happening already. And we don't want the black market to write the rules. We want the regulators to see sense and let it be. So there you go. Questions?
Thank you very much, Glenn. Yeah, I love that last point about advocating for registration rather than approval, because if something meets the regulations, then it meets the regulations and you should be allowed to have it. So yes, and getting those regulations in place does seem like quite a priority if some people are already doing it without any oversight or standards to adhere to. Now, the questions that I had might have mostly been answered. What will it take for Australia to get balcony solar, and what can I do to make it happen was one of those. And I guess that's a matter of lobbying the decision makers.
And it's already happening. Yeah.
Yep.
So that more pressure, if you do have a chance to talk to your local member, bring it up with them so they're aware of that you're concerned that this is something that we should be able to have in Australia. Just keep their awareness on it. State
or federal is a question that just popped up in the chat.
Okay, so electrical safety regulations are all state-based, though the federal minister was wanting to put some pressure on them to come up with a solution. So you could say it's top-down, but it still is eventually, ultimately, a state-based decision.
Hey, Glenn, thanks for filling us in on that. It's all pretty exciting for me anyway. I'm a apartment dweller and don't really have access to making any decisions in our apartment block because I'm also a renter. When I first saw this maybe a year or two ago happening in Germany, my first thought was, why can't we do this in Australia? I wonder if outside of the electricity stuff, does Germany also have regulations around the installations of the brackets and the weight of the batteries and all that kind of stuff? Things that I think, after being on a strata committee, we'll get questions that will get asked, and they'll be like, oh, no, you can't put that on the balcony. How do we know you're putting these extra batteries on your balcony are not going to cause the balcony to crack? I wonder, does Germany have answers to those kinds of questions, as in with regards to, well, these are the specific things you can install and nothing outside of that?
Short answer is I don't know, but okay. The longer answer is there are engineering certificates for mounting systems. So they've been designed for a particular loading, and that already exists for rooftop solar, and it also exists for balcony solar. But your point about the railings itself is a moot point. How sturdy are they when you add extra surface area to them in a high wind zone? So it could come down to sort of engineering assessments of a building before that could be approved, if it's a high-rise building particularly. But when we're talking, say, low-rise, 1 or 2 stories, I can't see it being a very big issue. And the weight, a solar panel is around about 20 kilos, a big one, but these days there's lightweight ones which are around 10 kilos. It's not much weight at all. It's more just the surface area providing a bit of a sail, I suppose. And in terms of point loading of batteries, these batteries here, I can lift them myself. They certainly would weigh less than a person standing on your balcony. So if your balcony can't take a person, they can't take a battery.
Sticking to regulations, question from Leon in the chat, talking about RCDs. How can you tell what type you have, and is it costly to replace?
It's actually written on the front of them in tiny lettering. It'll say type A, type AC. So if you've got type AC, they're still legal unless you modify that system, like adding another circuit, but they are prone to being blinded if you were putting reverse power through them from an inverter. To swap them over, it's probably a 5-minute job for an electrician. They just open the switchboard, take out the old one, put a new one in, 2 screws they have to tighten. So it's not a very expensive change, though, you know, electricians aren't cheap, unfortunately.
Right. So, yeah, simple fix, but you do have to get the electrician out to do it. Did you have a question, Tyrone, as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say on the issue that Andrea raised, I think what you were saying, Glenn, about getting out ahead of this is going to be key to that. Is if government can provide guidelines to people, there's less chance that someone's going to be, you know, ill-informed and overload their balcony. Yeah, I think if we can have a registration system where people are like, yep, it's secure, and then you serial number or whatever brand or something. I think that's going to overcome a lot of those challenges. But as you said, if we leave this to the grey market, black market, whatever you want to call it, the risks go up. The main question that I had, which you answered really well, about the safety switches, and I've heard in Queensland, the fire service has been one of the people who have objected to this through concerns of overloading the circuits, causing fires and safety switches and things like that. So, and we've seen with very cheap AliExpress type lithium-ion devices like scooters and things like that, they have led to fires. So I think if we can bring in these standards and allow consumers to have some understanding of what needs to be done, then we're going to reduce those risks.
I could probably make you feel a bit more comfortable about the fire risks from batteries, because scooters have a very weak test standard, and it's not really enforced very well. So we're seeing scooters that have very poor safety control around charging, and hence they catch fire. Whereas a battery system like this will meet either an IEC or a UL standard. The UL standard requires this battery to be set on fire for 20 minutes and left for a day, and it shouldn't be unsafe. That's a pretty ferocious test. You actually set it in a pool of hydrocarbon, i.e. petrol, and set fire to it for 20 minutes. And so it has to pass that safety test. So it's a hell of a lot safer than a scooter that has dubious compliance around it. But I think, Andrea, you just raised something that I hadn't thought about, that the building code must specify the loading requirements for balcony restraints. So as long as those can be ratified by the body corporate, that the building meets the building code's requirements, it's probably a one-off engineering assessment.
Yeah, and I guess that's like per strata title. I guess that would be confirmed.
We have a comment in the chat about someone turning their heater way up from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. now that, well, that might be someone with solar panels, but that will be available to more people now on Solar Sharer with the 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. free electricity if you get yourself onto one of those plans. I was wondering about how much value balcony solar will give to renters if they're on a Solar Sharer plan. How much of their electricity use are they going to be able to offset with the use of balcony solar?
Yeah, so I mean, 3 hours at 800 watts is 2.4 kilowatt hours of energy. So it's basically the top of one of these batteries. I think it's a 1.6, I think that one is. So it's a bit, 1.5 of these that you could charge in that 3 hours of free power. But it's, you want to use everything. So you want to schedule your washing machine, your dishwasher, your heating if you need it, your cooling, etc., all to fall into that window.
I guess I'm asking a question now from the opposite angle, which is about the effect on the grid, which you did mention. You wouldn't expect it to be a huge effect on the grid, given that something that we say all the time is that households use about 28% of all electricity used in Australia at last count. So the household energy transition is, far from the whole thing. There's a lot more going on in the energy transition outside of households. It did sound like you're not too concerned about the effect of these devices that can't be turned off in the way that a regulated or registered solar device could be.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons for the government is initiating the solar sharer program is we have too much solar in the middle of the day. So actually using energy is helping stabilize the grid. And it's free energy and it's clean energy. So adding to that a little bit of a balcony system, which would be, like 5% of a rooftop, is, insignificant. So I don't see any grid impacts from that.
Right. So this would let each person make the decision for them whether it's worth it on a financial basis or any other basis that they want to make the decision. I'm personally a big fan of that idea of just regulating things for safety and not for other reasons, like if, Andrea mentioned the aesthetics that strata corporations will probably try to throw at renters who want to put a balcony solar panel on. Got to mention here that everyone I know who has seen the free 3 hours of solar power plans have a higher daily rate. And I think you mentioned that, Glenn, that seems like the daily charge is going up on those plans to compensate, which means maybe no savings on your bill for people, but I suppose part of the plan was to make use of that solar power.
Well, you need to shop around. So don't just look at the fact that you're getting 3 hours of free power. Look at what the connection costs are compared to what you're currently paying. And yeah,
another comment there that it might be more expensive if you don't take full advantage of the free power period. Murray, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I'm in a rental that's a detached house. What would you suggest for putting solar panels, say, like just outside on the brickwork or something? How would they have to be attached?
I've got some more show and tell. Get yourself one of these. They're very popular amongst the camping community, and they're lightweight, flexible. You can take them inside when the weather's bad. You can put them out when it's sunny. They come with some cables and a little kickstand to set them up on. Yeah, so that's 100 and something watts, I think. So yeah, but they're quite cheap.
Yeah. So I don't need to bolt it into anything or.
No, I mean, if you go to any caravan park, you'll find them lying against caravans everywhere. So, I mean, you have a bit of due diligence. If there's a windstorm, it might blow away.
Yeah.
But it's not metal and glass. It's just plastic and cloth. It's relatively lightweight.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Glenn. This has been really interesting. I was just wondering if you could just run through for people who might see this online and are thinking, oh yeah, I will get one of those, maybe those standalone batteries or something like that. And you mentioned I think it was 2000 watts, but the kettle that you mentioned earlier was like 2400 watts, I think it was. So what kind of appliances could you realistically run, say, from these standalone units if people were considering getting those before they moved into say a bigger battery? And then if you've got any kind of other information around consumer grade technology that are coming down the line, we'd love to hear about that, because I think the technology is progressing so fast that it's easy to not update your priors when it comes to these things. So I think it's really good for people to hear as much about it as possible.
More show and tell then. Hang on. So this unit here, I've lent it to a couple of people who run their home off it while they're getting solar installed, off-grid customers. It won't run everything. I wouldn't be running kettles, fans, heating fans, or anything that's high energy, but running the fridge all day long, no problem. So if you've kind of downsize your expectations to just the essentials, lighting, fridge, internet, perhaps something like that, can actually run the whole house for the whole day. And he'd then bring it round and charge it up at my place and take it back again. So it was basically a portable power station, as they call them.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, we went through Cyclone Alfred last year, and there were some suburbs which had no power for like nearly 3 weeks. So something like that would be fantastic. I think a lot of people are starting to realize, oh, this is great. And then again, if you have an EV as well, often you can charge off that as well. There was someone down on the south side of Brisbane, I think it was Mount Tambourine or something, where she said her son had like a critical, a medical condition, and she was able to use her EV so it was life saving for him. So because they were blocked by the roads were blocked as well, so there's no way they could have got diesel or petrol or something for a generator. So yeah, this technology is fantastic.
So Tyrone, you've raised another issue around balcony solar, which is not just about cheaper electricity, it's also about resilience in emergencies, to have that capability. So of course that does mean batteries pretty much. Yeah.
And in a situation like that, I suppose the safety requirements that we talked about would put some minds at ease as well, as for it not becoming a hazard in a disaster situation. What's the capacity and the power output on that battery behind you there that you just showed us, Glenn?
2,400 watts of continuous AC power, which is basically your standard socket outlet in your home. Should be able to run 2,400 watts, maybe a bit more. And it's 1.8 kilowatt hours. So if those numbers don't make a lot of sense to you, you can divide the kilowatt hours by the watts of an appliance, and that gives you time, how long it'll last. So if you've got a TV using 200 watts, this will run for about 7 hours.
Yeah, so average use is somewhere between 10 and 20 kilowatt hours for Australian households, is it?
Yes, it's quite variable. Like in Victoria, where there's quite a lot of gas, it's lower. So a lot of people, what we call gas freeloaders. Yep. But yes, it's more around the sort of 20 mark on average.
I suppose solar is a better proposition maybe for the states that use more energy for cooling rather than heating, maybe, if the sun's going to be more available in summer. But with balcony solar and the amount of power that they can generate, using them in winter versus summer, would you even see a difference, or would they be sort of at their maximum?
Very much dependent on your latitude. So the closer you are to the equator, the less difference there is from summer to winter in terms of solar. If you're down in Tasmania, you might think you're very south, but you're only about 1/3 of the way to the South Pole, or maybe a bit more. You're not that south, but it makes a big difference. So the arc of the sun is greater in winter, so your panels will be maybe not facing the right direction for much of the day, because the sun is doing in summertime a big arc. So yeah, orientation and inclination are two factors that have a significant impact on the performance of solar panels. Probably one of the advantages for Germany, though, is because its latitude is so far away from the equator. Germany's somewhere around 50 to 55 degrees latitude, which would be south of Tasmania, a long way south of Tasmania. Panels that are vertical actually work quite well. So you don't actually have to tilt your panels much on a balcony. You more or less just hang them off the side. And if you're on the south side of a building, which is where the sun is in the northern hemisphere, they'll work quite well. So you've got this other issue, which is, do you even have a good solar resource to put your solar panels in. And that's where, it comes down to every individual.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's not having regulations for this isn't going to suddenly make it an economical proposition for every single renter, but yeah, giving them the choice is the important thing here.
Fun fact, people often think that putting your panels on your roof must face to the north to be worth it. I like to point out that putting panels on the south side of your roof in Victoria, which you would think is the worst possible option, well, maybe Tasmania, is as good as you get in Germany, facing optimum direction. Another reason for vertical solar is it's basically the cheapest building material you can find to make a fence, a solar pergola, a carport. It's cheaper than color bond, and it generates electricity, and you get a rebate if you're connected to the grid.
Do you have any recommendations of any specific products that you think work great? As like a
I get asked that a lot, but my simple answer is I'll tell you in 10 years. Because I've been burnt. I've been burnt many times. Products that I thought were great, a couple of years later, they're recalled and they're out of the market. The Australian government has given the Clean Energy Council the role of creating what's called the approved product list. And that means they have to meet some pretty rigorous safety standards. So anything on the Clean Energy Council's approved product list is all you can choose to get a government rebate for. And it's also a guide to quality.
Thank you again, Glenn, for coming and speaking with us, because we're really interested in understanding and helping others to understand the energy system from everywhere, from what you were saying, that off-grid solar for camping, all the way up to your big utility scale projects to meet industry demand and things like that. So this is something that we need to look at comprehensively across the entire range of requirements that we need for people and civilization. So we definitely, I think, will be speaking with government and developing a position on this, and working with other organisations that you brought up tonight, such as the Race to 2030. Was it Race to 2030?
Yeah.
And Rewiring Australia, because yeah, we're very much all of the above when it comes to clean energy technology. Let's just do as much of it, and let's go as fast as we can and get people hooked onto that and off fossil fuels as fast as possible. So thank you so much for coming this evening.
No worries.